All right. So, good morning. Welcome. It's always good to see you guys, to see, again, like I said last week, the dedication, being willing to get up and show up. It's always really nice to have you guys, and keeps me inspired because I need to think of something to say, and I got to practice what I'm saying, and hopefully it inspires you guys as well. So I have this book today that I wanted to teach from. It's called Five True Things by David Richo. He wrote a great book, How to Be an Adult in Relationships. It's a great title too, but that's a really good book. I think there's a book before this that is in line with this one, but this is like a tiny little it even says a little guide to embracing life's big challenges. And so basically, this book is about five true things in life. And you know that, like, our practice of meditation and mindfulness is lining ourselves up with what's true and learning to embrace that, and maybe finding better ways to relate to those truths. So I'm going to read them through once, and I'll talk a little bit about each one, and maybe read a few things from here. So here they are. Number one, everything changes and ends. Number two, things do not always go according to plan. Number three, life is not always fair. Number four, pain is a part of life. And number five, people are not loving and loyal all the time. So he's not trying to be pessimistic or, like, say that all life stinks and these things are going to happen, poor you. But what he is saying is that in this life that we have, these five things are going to be experienced. They're just truths. We're not being punished. It's not like, we're bad and it's our fault or something like that. These are just things that happen in this human life. And like the Roman playwright Terence, he says, nothing human is alien to me, right? And all of these experiences are things we're going to experience, and we want to get to know them. We want to say yes to them in order to cultivate equanimity and wisdom, compassion, and all this stuff. So everything changes and ends. I mean, this is like the teaching that I teach all the time, and that I always am pushing, is impermanence. It's so important. I mean, it's just the only, like, unchanging truth that life offers, is that everything changes. You can see now, like, the crickets are getting a little louder, and the weather's a little cooler, and depending on where you live, maybe the trees are very subtly changing color. Summer's ending, right? We're in transition right now, summer to fall. And that's maybe a bigger thing, but just looking your day to day, yesterday ended, today is just beginning, and today will end. Looking more closely to home, this breath, right? Breathing in has to end, breathing out, begins, and then breathing out ends, and breathing in begins. And there's just these transitions, and life is always changing. And that's why we practice not grasping, not holding on, because if you hold on to anything, it's like grabbing on a rope that's flying by. You're going to get rope burn. It's gonna hurt. Not holding on doesn't mean not loving and not caring, but it's just knowing the truth that these things in our lives, in ourselves, everything is gonna change and ultimately end. And how we relate to that will either cause us a lot of suffering, or can possibly help us in our spiritual practice. It just depends on the how, right? We've talked about that before. It's not the what. We're not dealing with the content of our life. Yes, we have to deal with the content of our life. But in our meditation practice, we are specifically focusing on the how. How am I relating to what's being presented in this present moment, right? And that's always changing. So we can't get attached. We can't get stuck. Maybe things are going great right now. That's fine. Enjoy it, embrace it, fully experience it, and live that joy and be happy. But also keep in mind that when things come together, there surely at some point will start to fall apart or change. So when that change happens, it's not, oh my God, poor me, why? It kind of switches over to, okay, this is happening. Now what? Now how am I going to relate to this? So that's everything changes and ends. And he does say a little, like, I don't want to use the word positive, but I'm gonna, like, a little positive, like, thing after each one that I want to read. Where is it? I think it's in the beginning somewhere. Here we go. So for this one, although everything changes and ends, things renew themselves and move through cycles that further evolution. So yes, things end, but that also means something new begins, and every death leads to birth, and every birth eventually leads to death. So it's just this cycle of life. So if right now is a hard time, then we can just let it be a hard time and go through it and try to open to it, knowing that this is just one hard time of probably many, and this will change, and happiness will come again, and things will be different, and the process goes on. We go through seasons just like the planet, um, so that's the first one. The next one: things do not always go according to plan. Ain't that the truth? All right. Anyone not experience that out there? No, right? Because it's true, and things go the way they're going to go. Like, I'm sure we all didn't want coronavirus, and now wearing masks and not being able to hug people and all this stuff. Like, we didn't want that, but there's life's plan. There's our plans and there's life's plans. And to put it in like a Judeo-Christian way, it's thy will, not my will. It's kind of saying the same thing. Like, let me surrender to what life presents me. Let me be willing to face it, and let me be willing to work with it and open to it. Not to fix it or solve it, but really just because that's what's true. That's your life in this moment, and that's the ingredient, or those are the ingredients of your life currently. And what now? And we have to stop saying why me, why. Like, this is what's happening, and you could sit there and ponder all different reasons why if you'd like, but then you're kind of just avoiding dealing directly with what's presenting itself, which is the only place you can actually do something. It's just right here in reality, with your mind the way it is, your body the way it is, your family the way they are, your situation the way it is. So this is it. And I push that point all the time. This is it. There's no other place. There's no other life where the grass is greener or this or that. There's just this, right? So things don't always go according to plan. There's a nice little story about a farmer. I don't know if you ever heard this one, but a farmer has one horse, and the horse runs away, and the neighbors are like, oh, that's such bad fortune, such bad news. And the farmer goes, who knows, a few days later, the horse brings back 5 wild horses. And of course the neighbors are like, wow, such good luck for you, things are going well, that's so great. And he goes, yeah, who knows, right? And then later on, while the son is trying to like tame the wild horses, he falls off one of them and breaks his leg, and it's a really bad break, and he's got to basically limp for the rest of his life, kind of handicapped in a sense. And of course these neighbors, right? Oh, such bad fortune that these horses came. Now your son's legs broke, and he's not gonna be able to walk the same for the rest of his life. And again, he goes, who knows? And then of course, a month or two later, the army comes along to take all the well-bodied young men, and he's not able to go because his leg is messed up. So basically, I feel like that story goes along with things don't go according to plan because we just don't know. We don't know if our biggest heartbreak might bring us the greatest gift in our life, right? Or the greatest gift might bring us the biggest heartache. We don't know, you know. Um, think about, somebody who might have missed their flight on 9/11. How devastated they might have been that they missed their flight. They were going to miss a meeting or an important day at work, and their boss was going to be mad. And then look what happened, right? Look what happened. We don't know. We just don't know. So we learn to kind of trust in the unfolding of life. That's kind of meditation, is resting in that trusting spirit and saying, okay, now this, let's see, right? And just having that curiosity and that wonder, not solidifying. I know how life's supposed to be. I know what's supposed to happen, and I know what this means. We don't. We need to just accept that. And it's obviously hard, but we practice meditation, trusting that we have the capability to hold ourselves, to hold our lives, to face our lives, no matter how pleasant or unpleasant it might be. So once you realize things don't go according to plan, you can hold your plans lightly. I'm not saying don't plan your day, don't try to accomplish things, but just don't hold them like they have to be this way. Like it's the neurotic, like contraction or grasping that's like, I need it to go this way or else I won't be happy or I'm going to be miserable. Like that's such bullshit. It's this is your life, and you can either be open to it and appreciate it, no matter what, or you can keep following the ego, with its fears and its desires and its constant unsatisfactory way of being. So let's see what he says. Although things do not always go according to plan, we sometimes sense a larger plan at work through synchronicity that opens startling possibilities. So kind of along the same thing, like we don't know, there is an unfolding. And whether you believe that it's God's plan, or if you just believe it's the natural unfolding of life or whatever, it doesn't matter, the story you put on top of it. But we are part of something, and to say we're not is just crazy, because right now something's beating my heart. I'm not doing that. My blood cells are doing something all on their own. My stomach's digesting my breakfast all on its own. Awareness is just awake and aware all on its own. Like we're already just our body and our mind. It's already, deep wisdom. It's already something larger, and we're breathing in the oxygen of trees, which come from dirt and which come from the rain and the mountains. Like we're already interconnected, and we're already part of something greater. There's no way we can't be. I mean, we're not separate. How can we be separate from the planet? Right? We can't leave the planet and live on the moon or something, because we are one with it, and we breathe it, we eat it, we drink it. We are so intimately connected. So we have to learn to trust that deeper wisdom, whatever you want to call it, whatever, it's fine. But we learn to let go. and really, we let go of control, right? That's ego's biggest thing. I want control, right? Because I want to make sure I can handle it, or I want to make sure I get what I want. And really, you eventually learn that living through that ego and that control is just not a very conducive way to live, because things don't go according to plan. So the next one, life is not always fair. Right now, even though we're in our houses, we might have had a nice breakfast. There are children that have no food, that are living in dumps. There are people, experiencing racism and violence and hatred. There's, wars, and innocent people are getting killed and kidnapped. And there's a lot of really messed up things that happen in this life, and then again, it's hard to accept. It's hard to take in, because we want it to be different. But unfortunately, this is part of it. There's this darker part of life, and things happen. Things are unfair. Good people get illnesses, right? And I never really understood the argument about that. For me, if you're a human being, you're subject to illness. Um, so if you're good or evil, you still have a human body that is subject to human illnesses, and it's nothing personal. It's not like, life's out to get me. It's just as you get older, things happen, illnesses happen, aging happens, death happens, and it doesn't matter, you know, if you are a good person or a bad person, these things are going to happen anyway. Um, so what he says is that although life is not always fair, something in us remains committed to fairness and refuses to be unjust or retaliatory. So basically, even though there might be this unfairness, we still have a practice of being fair, of being just, and that's part of our path. So we have to kind of balance the two of, I want to stand up for these things, but I also have to be okay with the fact that these things are going to continue to exist. That's not like we can just eradicate all racism magically, or all hatred or all, hunger. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we're completely helpless and that we can't make a difference. There's that story with the starfish. I don't know if you ever heard. Um, there's a little, there's a little girl or boy on a beach, and he's throwing back all these starfish that came ashore. And the fisherman's like, oh, that happens every time there's a storm. And look how many, there's miles of them. He's like, why even wasting your time? Like, what good is this going to do? Who are you going to help? And something along these lines. I'm not good at retelling stories. But the little kid picks one up and throws it in and says, well, it means something to that one. I'm helping that one. So it's the same kind of idea as that story is like, okay, maybe I can't feed every child in the world, but I can feed that one, or I can feed this group, or maybe I can't end racism, but I can help, make equality in this community, or I can, help make a peaceful place at this location, or, so there's things that we can do, right? But again, we have to come from that place of, but the bigger problem, it may still remain, right? And we have to have some equanimity with that. And why? Because what's the alternative, right? Getting upset about it doesn't change it, that it's there. You know, really, I mean, it's going to be there either way. So, so just understand that life is not always fair. It really makes a big difference, because when something unfair happens to you, it's not like, what the heck? It's, of course, and I think that's what we shift from with this book. And when we start opening, we start to shift to, like, of course this is happening, right? So if I get an illness tomorrow, it's, of course, I'm not going to like it, and I might be upset about it, but of course, like, why would I think that this wouldn't happen? Like, this is something that I know is possible and will be probably true at some point. And that's why it's good to contemplate these things every day. I think about death and illness every day, my own, my family. It's just because it points me to my fears about it, to my anxieties about it, and I start to work with them, even though it's in a kind of fantasy setting, so to speak, of, me thinking about it, and it's not really happening. I'm slowly making friends with whatever is coming up, in response to those truths. So the next one, and this is another big one: pain is a part of life. Right? We have this human body with nerves, right? And nerves are not just made for pleasure, right? Nerves can take in pleasure and they take in pain. And you can't have a life that's just pleasure. You can't have a life that just feels good all the time. We really try, but it doesn't work. And it's fine. If you don't feel good all the time, guess what? You're a human being. Congratulations, you did it, right? You're not screwed up. There's nothing wrong with you if you have anxiety or if you're depressed sometimes, or if you are grieving, or if you just don't feel good sometimes. It's just the way it goes. Pain is a part of life. We lose things. We lose everything, really, if you think about it. Everything that you know and love and have now is going to change and end. All right. Doesn't mean that it just ends and that's it. Who knows, right? Every end is usually a beginning. But it's not an easy thing being a human being. So, there's all of this stuff going on. I mean, just look at our world now. This has been going on since human beings have been around. Not much has changed if we really look. I mean, yes, we've made a lot of progress in some way with equality and stuff, but there's still a lot of hatred. There's still a lot of wars. There's still a lot of ego and violence and all this stuff. And it's very painful and it causes a lot of suffering. So if we can kind of get ourselves used to pain and suffering and adapt and learn to open and embrace the pain in our lives, then we can be very useful out in the world, right? Because most of our neurotic patterns are trying to escape pain. If we really look at the neurotic things that we do, it's usually running away from something, right? So for example, if you worry excessively, the worry itself is driven by a fear, right? that it's trying to escape from. It's actually driven by the fear it's trying to escape, which is crazy. One time I felt helpless and groundless and a lot of pain, and I don't ever want to feel that way again. So that is the motivation to try to control and worry. And well, if this happens, then maybe this will happen. And you try to plan out the future so that you can not be, not have the rug pulled out from underneath you, and that you're ready and that you can handle it. But again, with this practice, we kind of learn to trust that we can handle life, that, even when we fall, he said somewhere in here, we can fall with grace and then just get back up, and that's part of it. This is all part of it. Nothing human is alien to me. We have to understand that. So whatever you're experiencing, it's not like you're some fucked up weirdo. Like that's part of the human experience. And there are people that are experiencing that and going through that. There are people that have gone through that and have made it out, and have made peace. So we can do it too. It's just our turn to bear the burden of human existence, and we have what we need in our DNA, in our, if you want to call it collective unconscious. Our ancestors did it and they got through it, because if they didn't, we wouldn't be here. And we have all that wisdom in our body from the first cell, first celled organisms all the way up until us. We have the wisdom. We have the ability to adapt and to evolve and to face this life and to do something with it. So we just need to remember that and start tapping into that and trusting in that, right? And that's what I love about meditation. You just let go and you trust in your awakened nature that's already there. You don't need to cultivate it. You don't need to meditate for 20 years. You're already it. It's already in every cell of your body. You just got to let go and get out of the way and stop trying to control and manipulate everything. So let me see. Oh, I lost the page. Where'd you go? Here we go. So although pain is a part of life, we have ways of dealing with it, and thereby we expand our powers to handle future pain and help others in their pain. An important point. It's not just about us. Yes, we learn to deal with our own pain and sit with our own neurotic behaviors and patterns, and learn to work with them and accept where we are so that we can do that for others, right? It's always the bigger picture. We're always doing things for the sake of all beings, or we're trying, It sounds nice, but it's a lot harder when you're really doing it. And then the last one, people are not loving and loyal all the time. And I'm just going to read this that he wrote. Nothing has to get in the way of our acting with loving kindness and not giving up on others. No human action can take away another human being's capacity to love. So yes, people will disappoint you. People might hurt you. Even people close to you might make mistakes from time to time that might be painful. But that doesn't mean that we have to stop acting in a compassionate, loving way. And this is very hard. I work with a lot of people that are miserable, that are mean for, well, I don't want to say for no reason, because obviously there's a reason for everything, but there's just no, it's just not necessary. So some of these people, some of them are on an ego trip and they just like to tell people what to do. Some people are just really angry and miserable, and you ask them to, like the other day, I asked somebody to move their truck up maybe 4 feet so I could back into a bay door, and he was so angry. Like I asked him to sacrifice his only son or something, like, and then I even thanked him and he just, whatever. Like, and how, so, to be able to hold your own reactivity and not bite the hook is very hard, because I just want to say, like, fuck you, dude, like, I asked you to move up 4 feet. I did, but that is not, that's not the way, that's not the way that we practice. And that's not what I teach. So, and then it's just like, what am I contributing to the world? And look, there's already this angry man. Do I want to contribute more anger? Do I want to contribute more hatred and more misery? Or do I want to just say, okay, like, yeah, my ego's crying about that a little bit. That's okay. But who knows what's going on with this guy? Maybe he's in a crappy relationship, or maybe his mother's dying, or maybe he hates his job, or maybe he struggles with pain, or, and you could sit there and theorize all day, but for some reason, this person is suffering immensely. And that's the shift. And that's kind of, I think I've said this before in our sessions, that's kind of where my mind has gone lately. It's kind of shifted from anger to tenderness. Like you see like something political that makes you angry, or you see violence, like on Facebook, people are always posting all these, violent things or police things, and whereas I might have got angry in the past seeing that and wanted to write something or nasty or retaliate, it's more like, oh my God, like, how are we at this place? How are these people's minds so filled with unease and hatred? And I don't know, it's more heartbreaking. And I think that tenderness is a great place to go. I know our society kind of says sad is bad, but sad is great. Sad is really where loving kindness and compassion and understanding and wisdom are all born out of. I know when I, am experiencing, let's say, the loss of somebody or whatever, and my heart's open and I'm really upset about it, those are the times when I'm most loving. And then I go through my day, and the little things that used to make me mad, it's just like my heart is open, and it touches you in a different way, and you experience it different. And I could go on and on about these and read all these underlined sentences that I have, but I would say get the book and give it a read. It's really worth it. It's a really small. You could probably read it in a day. It's like 100 pages or something. But there's a lot of wisdom in there, and I found it very helpful. And even though you know these truths and they clearly happen to you, sometimes we forget. So it's always good to that's why I love reading and listening to podcasts and even groups like this, because it's just, you have to be reminded, because you get so lost in the ego bullshit and dreams and fantasies that we forget that real life is happening underneath it, and that there's a different way, and that we can have a lot more ease if we line ourselves up with that. So I talked a little more than I had hoped. So why don't we just sit for maybe 10 minutes and then we can open it up to talk. So as always, you can listen to the bell. I know it sounds horrendous after the first few seconds, but just listen to whatever the bell sounds like. And just for today, No method. Don't do anything special. Just sit and let life come to you. Let just life be what it is and just experience it. Experience the body, experience the mind, the sounds. Just let it all be the way it is. So let's start. So, in just a moment, the bell will ring again, and just hear whatever amount of it that you can. All together, we can take a nice deep breath in the nose, out the mouth, and slowly just start to move the body a little bit. And when you're ready, you can open the eyes. And those of you out there on Facebook or YouTube, now we sign off and we do our kind of connecting, our group connecting and chatting. So hopefully you guys can join us at some time on Zoom in the future. So see ya.